Hi, Professor. Travis White-Velez here with this week's Advanced Concept interactive presentation for Chemistry 126, Week 2. This week, the presentation is going to be based on the iodine clock, and more specifically, chemical kinetics. Chemical kinetics is just the study or the branch of chemistry that is concerned with or the rate of time it takes for reactions to occur. For this experiment, you are going to utilize coffee filters, measuring glasses, a spoon to mix as well as to measure, vitamin C, these are vitamin C capsules, iodine, cornstarch, hydrogen peroxide, distilled water, 2 containers to mix the separate solutions in. So one will be labeled container A and one will be labeled container B. And what is not pictured here is I'm also going to be utilizing an electric kettle to warm water so that the cornstarch will dissolve a little bit quicker than if I was mixing it in room temperature distilled water. I will be right back. I'm going to gather these supplies and I'm going to also crush the vitamin C capsules into a powder. Not a terribly fine powder, but I don't want to see gritty stuff as I'm getting it dissolved into the distilled water. I'm going to get that going and I will be right back with the experiment, and I will explain hopefully why the iodine goes from being clear to returning to a bluish hue or bluish color. I will be right back with the experiment, and post-experiment I will do the explanation. Okay, so I am now going to make solution A. Solution A is going to be 2 1,000 milligram tablets crushed up, so 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Before I do that, I'm going to take about 60 mLs of the distilled water. I'm going to pour that into the measuring cup and have that ready to pour over. All right, I'm now going to crush these pills. All right, so those crushed very nicely. I'm going to then take that powder and put that in the jar that I marked A. Just gonna put that in there. And then I'm going to take the 60 mLs of water. I'm going to distilled water, pour it in there. And I am now going to mix. And so this is gonna be roughly 30 seconds of mixing. I'm gonna go ahead and do this off camera and I will be back. Okay, everything is all mixed up. I'm now gonna go ahead and filter it into this container. Pour it through a coffee filter. And just let that do its thing there. As you see, it's coming through nicely, catching the larger particles. And while that is filtering, I will go ahead and let that finish off camera and I will be back. So I have the vitamin C the water looks murky, but there are no particulates floating in it. So now I'm gonna set that aside. I'm gonna start making the solution B. This, I'm going to take cornstarch and I'm gonna take about 0.4 grams. Honestly, I'm gonna guesstimate here. So I can do cornstarch, grab my spoon. All right, I'm gonna put the cornstarch in the here. It's cool. Set that to the side. I'm gonna grab the water from the kettle. And we're gonna do about 300 of the 350 of the hot water. So grab that. So that is 150. Sorry, it's hot. That is 300. Ooh, hot. And then that is another 50. So that's 350 of water now out of the kettle. Gonna stir that just to dissolve all of the cornstarch. And I'll go ahead and do this off camera, and I will then be back with, some of the other steps. Okay, so to this solution, solution B, the cornstarch, I'm also going to add 150 mLs of the hydrogen peroxide. There we are. So 100 mLs of hydrogen peroxide. All right. We're gonna go ahead and give that a stir. And I'm going to set that to the side. And now come back to solution A, which is the vitamin C. I'm going to then take the iodine tincture, and that is going to go in here. And I don't know if you saw how it went from, being colorless, or to having that dark color to back to being colorless. I will explain why that happened momentarily. And now I'm going to grab distilled water. Be back in one moment. I'm going to take some distilled water and just fill that up. And now that that's done, I'm going to take a larger container. And in this container, I'm going to take equal parts of the starch and hydrogen peroxide and equal parts of the iodine and vitamin C mixtures. And we're going to put them in this container and watch what happens. I said to grab something to mix. Give me 2 seconds. All right. So we have solution A, which is the vitamin C and the iodine tincture. And we have solution B. Going to go ahead and pour some of solution B in. Okay. And let that settle for a second because it's still hot. And now I'm going to take about equal parts of the iodine vitamin C mixture, and we should see what happens. All right, I guess I'll give it a little mix. All right, and I will be back in a moment. And then when I do come back, I will explain why the reaction happened. And the reaction happened. And just in case no one believes that, I'm actually going to do this again with what I have left. And we'll do it on camera. Give me 2 seconds. That's a little longer than 2 seconds, but it instantly goes from, having no color and we will see that happen in a moment, hopefully. Sit for a moment. And still, nothing happened just yet. With the other reaction, it was almost instantaneous. All right. Pour maybe a little more of the starch in there. And give that, and boom, just need a little more of the starch, and we have the iodine. So you can see it, they both turned that dark blue color. I will be back in a moment to explain exactly why that happened. And I am back. I'm just going to explain why we have, this colored solution. So in solution A, we had the vitamin C and I negative ions. In solution B, we had starch and the hydrogen peroxide. And then when the two solutions were mixed, there were competing reactions occurring. The reactions that were happening were the hydrogen peroxide wanted to oxidize the I negative ions back to the colored I2. The ascorbic acid wanted to reduce the I2 back to I negative. And the vitamin C is eventually consumed in the reaction due to the excess of hydrogen peroxide, so the I2 starts to accumulate again. The I2 then complexes with the I negative to form a triiodine complex, which quickly complexes with the starch, which results in the blue triiodine starch complex. So the long and the short of it is, essentially the vitamin C is what kept the iodine from being the color it was. When the vitamin C was consumed in the reaction, you then yielded triiodine starch, which is blue in color. Thank you for your time, and I hope I explained this well.